Salute, my Quickclassics friends. Greetings to you on this Thursday, March the 11th. And today we're going to be talking about Founding Fathers and the classics. And as always, if you like the content, please click a like, subscribe, and share. And let's get rolling today. Now, when I taught American history, I used to tell my students that there were really four things necessary for the American Revolution to happen, these four major cultural movements. The first was the Enlightenment movement, the second was the ensconcement and value of education in the colonies. The second was religion, in particular the Great Awakening of the early 1700s. And then finally, fourthly, the French and Indian War, which served to sort of build a binder between the colonies of sorts that really hadn't been there before. But I'd like to focus in on the educational portion today, particularly as the classics pertain to the founding fathers. Now, if you're a student of American history, you'll know that the rather fluid category of founding fathers contains some core people like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, um, and the like. Um, and it goes without saying that virtually all of these individuals were highly influenced by the classics, not just the Greek and Roman classics, but also the biblical classics, the Judeo-Christian classics, particularly because um, education began with those in the home. Your first textbook was your Bible, and even if you got the most basic of education um, in terms of your letters and numbers, as it were, you did get a little sprinkling of the classics. And if you happened to go to a church school or your family was wealthy enough to hire tutors, then you could likely find yourself being highly exposed to the classics in a classical education setting, the old grammar, logic, and trivium system that we've talked about on this channel before. Um, but it's very clear that this education rooted in the classics is very important, even early on in the colonies. Education was highly prized, and not just the sort of primary or preparatory basic education, but even college education. Within less than a generation, the big colleges like Harvard is the one that springs to mind. And other colleges like King's College and it became Columbia, College of William and Mary in Virginia. Um, it, it was very clear that literacy and education was a big priority in the colonies because these were people who were ravenous to stay informed. And as it would happen, these Judeo-Christian classics and Greek and Roman classics would inform the very foundations of our society: ethical, moral, legal, et cetera, et cetera. Probably the guy that comes to mind the most in association with the classics during this period is Thomas Jefferson, the so-called American Sphinx, and the Renaissance man par excellence in American history. Um, Jefferson, of course, came from Virginia gentry, and he was able to access a classical education and was very versed in the classics. Um, so much so that in addition to the other languages that he learned, he was very conversant in Latin, in particular ancient Greek, and well into old age. In fact, one of his favorite pastimes was to read Homer in the original Greek. So there's a brain pan for you. John Adams, likewise, a competent Latinist. He became a lawyer. So a lot of his legal philosophy was certainly influenced by particularly the Romans, but also the Greeks. Um, Benjamin Franklin, although more of an autodidact and not necessarily um, receiving the exact same kind of classical education, did get some elements of classical education because his family wanted him to be a Puritan minister initially, and Franklin himself became a capable Latinist and read a number of works in translation, Plutarch being notable amongst them. And so you have folks like that who might not have gotten a complete classical education, but nonetheless, by reading works in translation, were able to benefit from the history, the culture, the philosophy, and the language of classical civilization. George Washington is another figure. Although he had to get his education piecemeal because he wasn't born into first tier Virginia gentry. Um, Washington did read a number of things in translation, and he was quite fond of Cato, a translation of Cato, which was very popular in the colonies at the time. And even Washington would be ensconced in the popular consciousness of the educated colonial public, and particularly the revolutionary public, because they compared him to Cincinnatus, who was a Roman general in the very antique past of Rome, who was a farmer and left his farm to answer the call to lead the Roman army. And then once the emergency had passed, the war had passed, he returned to farming. And so those sort of agrarian and martial values are often compared with Washington, um, not only in terms of his military service, but as a president, because he, of course, sets the standard of accepting power for a time and then relinquishing power after a time. Um, James Madison is another heck of a specimen in terms of classical learning and the scope of classical learning. He was immensely educated in the classics, and as the father of the Constitution, he spent a good deal of time and energy going back and rereading and researching the various kinds of governments that approached a republic, including the Roman Republic, but also some of the confederacies that existed, some of the leagues that existed in ancient Greece. Not so much the city-state governments, which were pure democracy, but the coalitions, the confederated coalitions that kept them together. And so the 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 Greek and Roman classics certainly influenced James Madison and the way that our very political institutions were founded, particularly as regards the Constitution. And so there's kind of a taste of how important the classics were and what role they played in the founding of the United States of America, and should continue to play, I would argue. Now, if you're interested in the classics, you're in luck. Uh, I have just launched a new Greek course, the Rudiments of New Testament Greek, which will not only let you dip your toes into the New Testament, but also some other ancient sources. Be some examples from Homer and Plato, probably, and certainly some passages from the Bible to work on. That I'm offering at the introductory rate of $300 this week. It's a 2-month session. And it doesn't stop there, because if you act before week's end, let's just say by the end of the day on Sunday, if you act by then, purchase the Rudiments of New Testament Greek. I'll also throw in an entire certification. That's right, one of the 12 course modules offered by the Institute of Biblical Anthropology, whether it's biblical anthropology, biblical demonology, or preternatural morphology. You have your choice of one of those. I'll throw one of those in for free. That's right. There's some crazy deals happening at Burton Beyond and the Institute of Biblical Anthropology, and picking up more students all the time. And you guys are fantastic and great. There's always room for more. I'm really excited about getting this Greek program off of the ground, and teaching more. Uh, Certainly teaching the Judeo-Christian classics, but looking forward to teaching more of the Greco-Roman classics as well. So again, if you're interested in studying Greek, just for the novelty of it, but or becoming a better student of the Bible, you're not going to get a deal like this in university. You're going to be paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars more per credit hour to take language classes like ancient Greek and biblical Greek. So this is a really good opportunity, to kind of get your feet wet, and learn the very basics of the Greek language, in particular the Koine tongue that was spoken and used in the time of the Bible, the New Testament rather. So I'll put a link in the description. If you want to register for this class, you can email me at professorburton@yahoo.com and put Greek Plus in the subject line. And that'll let me know that you want to take advantage of one of the 12 course certification modules that'll come along with it for free. Those modules are also individually available this week for $175. All that you do in terms of watching the channel and taking courses and buying books, all helps to fund what's going on at the Institute of Biblical Anthropology. And I really do appreciate all that you guys have been doing and continue to do. And so until the next episode of Quick Classics, you guys stay studious, delve into the classics where you can, and I'll see you soon.